Ji-won stood in the memorial chamber, her reflection staring back from the polished black stone. The wall stretched before her like an endless night, carved with names that glowed faintly in the dim light. 4,300,000,000 names. She had walked this corridor countless times, yet the weight never lessened. Her fingers traced a particular section where her grandmother's name rested among thousands of others. The old woman had died in the labor camps on Kesher Prime, working until her body simply gave out. Ji-won was only 5 when the rebellion happened. She barely remembered Earth before the Valorians came. "Admiral, the council is waiting," a young officer said from the doorway. His voice was careful, respectful. Everyone knew what this place meant. Ji-won turned away from the wall. "Tell them I'm coming." She walked through the corridors of the Times, Eternal Vigil *, the flagship of humanity's rebuilt fleet. The ship hummed with quiet power, its engines a fusion of human desperation and stolen Valorian technology. When the survivors fled in 2461, they took everything they could carry: ships, weapons, data cores. The Valorians had been so confident in their superiority that their security was laughable. The command center was alive with activity. Screens displayed star maps, fleet positions, and intelligence reports. Officers moved between stations with practiced efficiency. Humanity had learned hard lessons about survival. "Report," Ji-won said, taking her position at the center platform. Commander Young-soo stepped forward with a data tablet. "Long-range scouts have confirmed it, Admiral. The Dominion is mobilizing a colonization fleet, 300 vessels, support craft, and military escorts. Their trajectory puts them on course for the outer territories." "Our territories," Ji-won said quietly. "Yes, ma'am. They'll reach the border zones in 6 months. After that, they'll discover New Terra within a year." The room fell silent. New Terra was humanity's secret, their second chance. 20 billion humans lived there now, spread across 4 worlds and a dozen orbital stations. They had built cities, farms, factories. They had built a home, and they had sworn never to be slaves again. Ji-won studied the star map. The Valorian Dominion sprawled across 200 systems, an empire built on conquest and slave labor. They ruled 43 species, each one broken and controlled. The Dominion considered themselves the peak of civilization, the natural masters of the galaxy. They had thought humans were extinct. For nearly 400 years, humanity had hidden in the dark spaces between stars, rebuilding in silence. The survivors had passed down stories to their children, stories of Earth's green hills and blue oceans, stories of the day the sky burned with Valorian ships, stories of the camps where humans died by the millions. Young-soo cleared his throat. "Command has sent new orders, Admiral." Ji-won took the sealed data chip and inserted it into her personal reader. She read the words twice, making sure she understood correctly. Her expression didn't change, but her jaw tightened slightly. "They want us to attack," Young-soo said. "It wasn't a question." "Not attack," Ji-won corrected. "They want us to remind the Dominion that humanity still exists. They want us to show strength." She paused. "They want the Valorians to understand what happens when you destroy someone's home." Around the command center, officers exchanged glances. Some looked eager. Others looked worried. All of them had grown up with the stories. All of them had lost ancestors to Valorian cruelty. "Kesher Prime," Ji-won said, pointing to a system on the map. "It's one of their richest colonies. Mining operations, industrial production, and according to our intelligence, they're still using slave labor from conquered species." "A symbolic target," Young-soo observed. "More than symbolic. It's personal. That's where my grandmother died, where thousands of humans worked until they couldn't anymore." Ji-won looked around the room. "We're not going there to conquer. We're not going there to take resources. We're going there to send a message." She activated the fleet-wide communication system. Throughout the Time's Eternal Vigil times, and the 47 other ships of the battle group. Her face appeared on screens. This is Admiral Park. By now, you've all heard the rumors. They're true. The Valorians are expanding again. They're heading toward our new home, just like they came for Earth. She paused, letting that sink in. Command has given us authorization to respond. We're going to Keshar Prime. She could feel the tension through the ship, transmitted through the very walls. I know what you're thinking. I know what you're feeling. 400 years ago, our ancestors were defeated because they weren't ready, because they didn't understand how cruel the galaxy could be. But we're not our ancestors. We learned from their pain. We built our strength on their sacrifice. And now it's time to show the dominion that humanity remembers. Jiwan's voice hardened. They thought we were broken. They thought we were finished. They were wrong. Power up all weapon systems. Plot the jump coordinates. We leave in 3 hours. The screens went dark. The command center erupted into controlled chaos as officers moved to their tasks. Jiwan stood at the center, watching her people work. Youngsu approached quietly. The fleet will be ready, Admiral. But after this, there's no going back. The Dominion will know we exist. Good, Jiwan said. I want them to know. I want them to wake up every morning wondering if today is the day humanity comes for them. She turned to face him fully. They destroyed our world. They killed billions. They treated us like animals. And they never apologized. They never even acknowledged what they did. She walked back toward the memorial chamber, Youngsu following. Our job isn't revenge, Jiwan continued. It's justice. It's making sure no other species suffers what we suffered. And it's making sure the Valorians understand that humans never forget. They stood before the wall of names again. In the reflection, Jiwan could see the stars beyond the viewport, cold and distant. Plot the jump, she said quietly. It's time they learned what human memory looks like. The jump to Kesher Prime took 3 days. Daehyun spent that time checking and rechecking his equipment. Every weapon, every piece of armor, every communication device. His Marines did the same. They knew this mission would define everything that came after. Daehyun was a soldier by choice and by blood. His great-grandfather had died during the rebellion on Earth, fighting Valorian security forces with improvised weapons. His grandfather had been part of the first generation born in exile, trained from childhood to fight. His father had helped design the assault tactics they would use today, and now Daehyun stood in the drop bay of the Time's Eternal Vigil asterisk, preparing to write the next chapter. Colonel, we're approaching the target system, the ship's communication officer announced. Daehyun activated his helmet display. Around him, 3,000 Marines stood in perfect formation. They wore black armor that absorbed sensor scans, making them nearly invisible to Valorian detection systems. Each Marine carried weapons that combined human innovation with alien technology, creating tools of war the galaxy had never seen. Listen up, Daehyun said over the squad channel. Intelligence says there are 30,000 Valorian soldiers on Kesher Prime. They have defensive positions, automated weapons, and air superiority. He paused, looking at the faces of his troops. But those calculations don't account for one thing. We remember. Every one of us carries the memory of what they did to our people. That memory makes us stronger. That memory makes us faster. That memory makes us willing to do whatever it takes to win. The Marines didn't cheer. They didn't need to. Their silence was more powerful than any war cry. The fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Keshar system. Immediately, Valorian defense platforms began broadcasting warnings and threats. Admiral Jiwan's response was simple. The fleet's weapons fired in perfect synchronization, destroying every orbital defense station before they could react. They're hailing us, Youngsu reported from the bridge. Ignore them, Jiwan said. Begin the landing operation. On the planet's surface, Governor Thalon stood in his command center, watching the impossible unfold on his screens. Human ships. Real human ships. But that couldn't be right. Humans were extinct. The record said so. The history books said so. Get me the fleet command, Thalon ordered. Tell them we need immediate reinforcement. Sir, the communication relays are down. They hit our satellites first. Thalon felt something he hadn't experienced in his long career. Fear. The Valorians had ruled for so long, conquered so many, that they had forgotten what it felt like to be threatened. Prepare all ground forces. If they want this planet, they'll have to take it from us. But Daehyun had no interest in taking the planet. That wasn't the mission. The dropships fell through Kesher's atmosphere like burning stars. Valorian anti-aircraft fire filled the sky. But the human ships were too fast, too maneuverable. They had learned from the best, after all. They had learned from their enemies. Daehyun's boots hit the ground in the mining district, where thousands of alien slaves worked under Valorian supervision. The labor camps stretched for kilometers, a city of suffering built on cruelty. First objective, Daehyun commanded, the control towers. Second objective, the slave quarters. Third objective, the military barracks. Move. The Marines spread out like water, flowing through the streets with practiced efficiency. Valorian guards tried to organize a defense, but they had never fought an enemy like this. The humans didn't charge blindly. They didn't waste ammunition. Every shot was precise. Every movement had purpose. Within an hour, the control towers fell. The electronic collars that kept the slaves in line went dead. Confused aliens emerged from their quarters, unsure if this was a trick or a miracle. Daehyun stood before them and removed his helmet. He wanted them to see his face. My name is Daehyun. I'm human. 400 years ago, the Valorians conquered my people. They made us slaves, just like they made you slaves. Today, we're here to free you. If you want to leave, our ships will take you. If you want to fight, we'll give you weapons. The choice is yours. A tall reptilian creature stepped forward. Its species had been conquered 2 generations ago. You're really fighting the Dominion? Well, yes, Daehyun said simply. Then give me a weapon. Within hours, the slave population had transformed into an army of liberation. They knew the planet better than the Valorians did. They knew the hiding places, the weak points, the secret passages, and they wanted revenge just as badly as the humans did. The Valorian Military Command Center became a fortress under siege. Thalon watched his forces crumble on every screen. The humans fought like nothing he had ever seen. They were disciplined, but savage. They were tactical, but relentless. And they seemed to know exactly where to strike to cause maximum damage. Sir, they're broadcasting something on all frequencies, a communications officer said. Thalon listened to the message. A human voice, cold and clear, speaking in perfect Valorian. This is Colonel Daehyun of the Terran Marine Corps. We have taken control of the mining districts, the industrial sectors, and the slave quarters. Your soldiers are cut off and surrounded. You have 1 hour to surrender. If you refuse, we will destroy every military installation on this planet. Thalon smashed his fist against the console. We have 30,000 soldiers. How many humans are there? Estimates say 3,000, sir. Maybe less. Then how are we losing? The answer came 30 minutes later when human forces breached the command center. They moved through the building like shadows, neutralizing guards with shocking efficiency. Thalon reached for his sidearm, but a human marine was already there. Weapon aimed at his head. Don't, Daehyun said, walking into the room. I want you alive. I want you to deliver a message. Thalon straightened his uniform, trying to maintain dignity. You think this changes anything? The Dominion has millions of soldiers. You've won 1 battle. You'll lose the war. Daehyun stepped closer. You don't understand. This isn't about war. This is about memory. Every Valorian world will learn what happened here today. They'll learn that humans aren't extinct. They'll learn that we remember everything they did to us. And they'll learn that we're coming. He activated a recording device and spoke clearly. To the Valorian Dominion. You came to Earth 400 years ago. You destroyed our cities. You killed our people. You enslaved our children. You thought you had won. You thought we were finished. You were wrong. We survived. We rebuilt. We learned. And now we're here to teach you what your cruelty created. This is just the beginning. Every world that uses slaves will be liberated. Every fleet that threatens innocent species will be destroyed. Every commander who orders atrocities will face justice. You taught us how to suffer. Now, we'll teach you the price of that lesson. Daehyun turned off the recording. Broadcast that everywhere. Let the galaxy hear it. By the time the sun rose over Keshar Prime, the battle was over. Not a single human marine had died. The Valorian military had surrendered. The slaves were free. And throughout the Dominion, people watched the recordings with growing disbelief. Humans weren't extinct. Humans were back. And they remembered everything. The Galactic Council met in emergency session 3 weeks after Keshar Prime. Heijin walked through the enormous chamber, her footsteps echoing on the polished floor. Representatives from 64 species filled the curved seating areas, their voices creating a storm of sound. Some were angry. Some were afraid. All of them wanted answers. Heijin was used to being underestimated. She was small compared to most galactic species, and humans were still a mystery to most of the galaxy. But she had studied politics and diplomacy her entire life. She knew how power worked. She knew how fear worked. And she knew this moment would determine humanity's future. Order, the council chairman called out. He was a massive, crystalline being from a neutral species. We will hear from the human representative. The chamber fell silent. Hundreds of eyes turned toward Heijin as she walked to the central platform. She carried a small data device and nothing else. No guards, no weapons. Just the truth. Thank you, Chairman, Heijin said. Her voice was calm, but it carried through the entire chamber. I am Heijin Nam, representing the United Terran Command. I'm here to address the concerns about recent military actions in Valorian space. Concerns? Shouted a Valorian ambassador from his seat. You attacked one of our worlds. You freed dangerous criminals. You committed an act of war. Heijin turned to face him. I want to show you something. She activated the data device. Holographic screens appeared throughout the chamber, visible to everyone. What they showed made even the most hardened diplomats look away. The first image was Earth, burning under Valorian bombardment. Cities crumbling. Forests turning to ash. Oceans boiling. The second image showed humans in chains, working in mines until they collapsed. The third image showed children being separated from parents at processing centers. The fourth image showed medical facilities where humans were used as test subjects for experimental weapons. Image after image. Recording after recording. 400 years of suffering compressed into 10 minutes of undeniable evidence. These are not propaganda, Heijin said quietly. These are official Valorian records. We recovered them when we escaped. Every death, every torture, every experiment. All documented with bureaucratic precision. The Valorian ambassador stood. That was different. That was centuries ago. Different leadership, different times. Different? Heijin's voice turned cold. We have recordings from Keshar Prime from last month. The same methods, the same cruelty, the same disregard for life. Should I show those too? She didn't wait for an answer. New images appeared. Alien slaves on Keshar Prime, wearing the same chains her ancestors had worn. Working in the same conditions. Dying in the same ways. You didn't change, Heijin said. You just found new victims. The chamber erupted in arguments. Some species defended the Valorians. Others demanded investigations. A few sat in shocked silence, realizing that the Dominion's propaganda about peaceful expansion had been lies. Through the chaos, Heijin noticed a particular group of delegates watching her carefully. They were from the Trin Collective, an insectoid species she had studied extensively. According to intelligence reports, they had also suffered under Valorian expansion decades ago. The council chairman called for order again. The human representative will continue. Heijin nodded. The attack on Keshar Prime was not random. It was justice. We freed slaves. We destroyed military targets. We harmed no civilians. And we left. We took no territory. We claimed no resources. We simply reminded the Dominion that their crimes have consequences. You speak of justice, a neutral delegate said. But you seek revenge. I seek both. Heijin answered honestly. My grandmother died in a Valorian camp. My great-uncle was used in medical experiments. My people lost 4 billion lives. Is it revenge to want accountability? Is it revenge to prevent the same fate for other species? She pointed at the Valorian ambassador. They want us to forgive and forget, to pretend the past doesn't matter. But humans have long memories. We remember who helped us, and we remember who hurt us. Is that a threat? The Valorian ambassador demanded. It's a fact, Heijin replied. We don't want an empire. We don't want to conquer. We want the Dominion to stop treating other species like property. We want the slave camps closed. We want the conquered species given freedom. We want the galaxy to know the truth about Valorian expansion. The chamber fell into tense discussion. Heijin waited, watching the different groups form and dissolve. She could see the political calculations happening in real time. Some species feared the Valorians too much to oppose them. Others saw an opportunity to weaken a rival. And a few, like the Trin, seemed to be considering something else entirely. During a recess, Heijin found the Trin delegates waiting for her in a private corridor. That was quite a presentation, the lead Trin said. Their name was Click, and they spoke through a translation device. You revealed truths many here wish to keep hidden. The truth needs to be spoken, Heijin said carefully. We agree. Click moved closer. 50 years ago, the Valorians came to our worlds. They offered partnership. They promised protection. Instead, they took our resources and controlled our government. We lost billions too, but we were too weak to fight back. Heijin understood immediately. You want an alliance. We want justice, like you. But we also want to survive. The Dominion is powerful. If you fight them alone, you may win battles but lose the war. But if other species join you... Click left the sentence unfinished. How many species would join? Heijin asked. We've been communicating quietly. 7 species are ready to stand against the Dominion. More might follow if they see success. But they need proof that you're serious. That this isn't just one attack. Heijin considered this. 7 species, maybe more. It could change everything. I'll bring this to my superiors, she said. But I need to know. Are your people ready to fight? Really fight? The Valorians won't surrender easily. Click's mandibles clicked in. What Heijin had learned was determination. Our people are tired of bowing. We're ready. When the council reconvened, the Valorian ambassador made his final statement. The Dominion demands that humanity surrender immediately. We demand reparations for the attack on Keshar Prime. We demand the return of the freed slaves. And we demand that the humans submit to Galactic Council authority. If these demands are not met within 1 month, we will consider it an act of total war. The chamber went silent. Every eye turned to Heijin. She stood slowly, meeting the Valorian's gaze across the room. No, she said simply. We will not surrender. We will not pay reparations to the people who owe us for 400 years of suffering. We will not return people to slavery, and we will not submit to any authority that tolerates what the Dominion has done. She paused, letting her words sink in. But I will make you a counteroffer. Close the slave camps. Free the conquered species. Submit to independent investigations of your war crimes. Do these things, and we will consider peace. Refuse, and we will liberate every slave in your empire. We will destroy every fleet that threatens innocent species. We will make sure the entire galaxy knows what you really are. The Valorian ambassador's face twisted with rage. You're declaring war on the most powerful empire in the galaxy. You're dooming your species to extinction. Heijin smiled, but it wasn't friendly. You tried to make us extinct once. How did that work out for you? She turned to address the entire council. Humanity stands for justice. Any species that wants freedom, any species that wants to resist tyranny, any species that believes might doesn't make right, we stand with you. The Dominion has ruled through fear for too long. It's time for that to end. She walked out of the chamber, leaving chaos behind. But as she left, she noticed Click and the other Trin delegates standing. Then another species stood. Then another. 7 delegations in total, standing in solidarity. The message was clear. Humanity wasn't alone anymore, and the Dominion's empire was starting to crack. Minho watched the Valorian fleet assemble through the stealth sensors of the Times Silent Requiem *. 5,000 warships. The largest military force the Dominion had ever gathered. Every ship bristled with weapons. Every commander had orders to destroy New Terra completely. The Times Silent Requiem Times was small compared to those battleships. Just a crew of 40 humans in a ship designed for one purpose: to be invisible. Minho had captained her for 6 years, slipping through enemy territory, gathering intelligence, completing impossible missions. But nothing compared to what they were about to attempt. Captain, we're picking up their command frequencies. His communications officer, Saman, reported. They're coordinating the final jump sequence. How long? Minho asked. 3 hours until they reach the threshold gate. After that, it's a straight path to New Terra. The threshold gate was an ancient alien structure, a massive ring in space that created stable hyperspace routes. Control the gate, and you controlled access to an entire sector. The Valorians knew this. Admiral Jiwan knew this. The battle would be decided there. But Minho's mission wasn't to fight in that battle. His mission was to make sure the Valorians couldn't win it. Take us closer, he ordered. We need to get inside their formation. The Times Silent Requiem Times moved like a ghost through space. Its hull absorbed sensor scans. Its engines produced no heat signature. Valorian ships passed within kilometers without detecting them. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Minho's executive officer, Taejun, pulled up tactical displays. Their flagship is the Times Eternal Dominion *. That's where the Emperor himself is commanding. If we could disable her, we'd save thousands of lives, Minho finished. But getting close enough will be nearly impossible. They'll have layers of escorts. Then we don't get close. We make them come to us. Minho smiled. Taejun always thought 3 steps ahead. Explain. Over the next hour, they worked out a plan that was brilliant and insane in equal measure. They would use the Valorian supply ships as weapons. Each massive cargo vessel carried fuel, ammunition, and provisions for the fleet. They were also poorly guarded, because no one expected an attack inside their own formation. The Times Silent Requiem Times approached the first supply ship silently. Minho's boarding team, led by a Marine named Ciola, breached the hull using shaped charges that made no sound in vacuum. They moved through the ship like shadows, neutralizing the crew without firing a shot. Within 20 minutes, they controlled the vessel. Plant the charges, Minho ordered. Remote detonation, and reprogram the navigation system. They hit 3 more supply ships the same way. Each time, they were in and out before anyone noticed. Each time, they turned a cargo hauler into a bomb. Meanwhile, the main Terran fleet prepared at the threshold gate. Admiral Jiwan stood on the bridge of the Times Eternal Vigil *, watching sensor readouts. 48 human ships against 5,000 Valorian ones. The odds were absurd, but she had advantages the Valorians didn't expect. Status of the defensive grid? She asked Youngsu. Minefields deployed, drone swarms activated, artillery platforms online. We've turned this entire sector into a killing field. And the surprise? Youngsu smiled grimly. The asteroids are in position. Hellfire Protocol is ready. Jiwan nodded. Humans had learned that in space, the oldest weapons were sometimes the most effective. They had taken dozens of asteroids, hollowed them out, filled them with engines and guidance systems, and accelerated them to incredible speeds. When they hit something, they wouldn't just damage it, they would vaporize it. The Valorian fleet emerged from hyperspace right on schedule. Admiral Torvak, their fleet commander, stood in the Time's Eternal Dominion ********************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************* level. He had conquered 14 species. And today, he would finish what his ancestors started centuries ago. He would destroy humanity once and for all. All ships, battle formation, Torvak ordered. Prepare to advance through the gate. His sensors officer called out a warning. Sir, we're detecting weapons, platforms, and mines throughout the sector. Torvak waved dismissively. Clear them. We have the numbers. The Valorian fleet advanced. They destroyed mines and drones with overwhelming firepower. They outnumbered the humans 100 to 1. Victory seemed certain. Then the supply ships exploded. Not all at once. Minho had timed it perfectly. The first explosion took out 3 battleships that were too close. The second caused a chain reaction that crippled an entire carrier group. The third and fourth created debris fields that forced the Valorian formation to break apart. What's happening? Torvak shouted. Report. Sir, our supply vessels are exploding. Someone sabotaged them. Impossible. Those ships were in the center of our formation. Not impossible, a new voice said over the open channel. Minho's voice. Hello, Admiral. This is Captain Minho of the Terran Stealth Corps. I've been inside your fleet for the past 4 hours. Nice ships. Shame about the security. Torvak's face turned purple with rage. Find that ship. Find it and destroy it. But the Time's silent requiem times was already gone, slipping away into the chaos. The Valorian fleet tried to reorganize, but Admiral Jiwan didn't give them time. All ships. Advance. Fire. At will. Fire. At will. The Terran fleet moved forward with precision. They focused fire on damaged Valorian ships. They used the debris fields for cover. They fought with discipline and desperation combined. Release the asteroids, Jiwan ordered, from hidden positions throughout the sector. Massive rocks began accelerating toward the Valorian fleet. They moved at incredible speeds, guided by AI systems that calculated trajectories faster than any living pilot could react. Torvak watched in horror as a kilometer-wide asteroid smashed through 3 of his battleships like they were made of paper. Then another. Then another. His superior numbers meant nothing when humans could turn the battlefield itself into a weapon. All ships, retreat, he finally ordered. Fall back to... An asteroid hit the Time's Eternal Dominion Times directly. Not enough to destroy the massive flagship, but enough to cripple her engines and knock out half her systems. Torvak was thrown to the floor. Emergency lights flickered on. Alarms screamed through every corridor. Minho watched from a safe distance as the Valorian fleet broke. Some ships tried to retreat. Others tried to fight. All of them were losing. The humans weren't just defending. They were teaching a lesson. Hours later, the battle ended. 2,000 Valorian ships destroyed. Another 1,000 damaged. The rest scattered and running. The Terran fleet had lost 12 ships, and every name would be added to the memorial wall. But they had won. On the crippled Time's Eternal Dominion asterisk, Torvak received an incoming transmission. It was from a small stealth ship that had appeared next to his flagship, so close that weapons couldn't target it. Minho's face appeared on screen. Admiral Torvak, I have a message for your Emperor. We're transmitting it directly to him now. You think this changes anything? Torvak spat blood from a cut on his lip. The Dominion will never stop. We'll build more ships, train more soldiers. We'll hunt you across the stars until... Until what? Minho interrupted. Until you lose another fleet? Until more of your worlds revolt? Until every species you've conquered sees what we just did and realizes you're not invincible? He leaned closer to the camera. We're not trying to destroy you. We're trying to teach you. The galaxy doesn't belong to whoever has the biggest fleet. It belongs to everyone. And if you can't learn that lesson peacefully, we'll keep teaching it to you the hard way. The transmission ended. The time's silent requiem times vanished into hyperspace. Inside the ruins of his flagship, Torvak realized something terrible. The humans hadn't tried to kill him. They could have destroyed the times, eternal Dominion times, completely. They could have assassinated the Emperor. They could have pressed their advantage. But they hadn't. They had made their point and left. Because they weren't trying to conquer. They were trying to prove something. And they had succeeded. Across the galaxy, species watched the recordings of the battle. They saw 5,000 Valorian ships defeated by 48 human ones. They saw the mighty Dominion retreat in chaos. They saw proof that resistance was possible. The Empire was cracking. And humanity held the hammer. 6 months after the battle at Threshold Gate, Jiwan returned to the memorial chamber. The wall had new names now. 12 ships, 437 humans who died defending New Terra. Each name glowed softly in the darkness, joining the billions who came before. She placed her hand on the cool stone. We won, she whispered. But the price never gets easier. The war had changed everything. 17 species had openly rebelled against the Dominion. Dozens more quietly stopped cooperating. The Emperor's grip on his empire was slipping. And everyone knew it. The peace conference had been his idea, a desperate attempt to stop the bleeding before his entire civilization collapsed. The neutral station hung in space at the border between Valorian and free space. It had taken weeks to negotiate even the location. Neither side trusted the other. Both sides brought military escorts. Both sides expected betrayal. Jiwan walked through the corridors with Daehyun and Heejin beside her. They represented the 3 pillars of humanity's response: military strength, diplomatic precision, and unwavering memory. The Valorians are already here, Heijin reported. Their entire diplomatic corps, and the Emperor himself. Good, Daehyun said. His voice was hard. I want to look him in the eye. They entered the conference chamber. It was circular, with seating arranged so that no species had a superior position. Galactic Council representatives filled most of the seats, serving as witnesses and mediators. The Valorian delegation sat on one side, stiff and formal. Their emperor, Carthan IV, sat at the center. He was old now, his skin showing the signs of age and stress. The humans took their seats opposite. The room fell silent. The council chairman spoke first. We are here to discuss terms of peace between the Valorian Dominion and the United Terran Command. Both sides have agreed to negotiate in good faith. Let's be clear, Jiwan said immediately. We're here because the Dominion lost. They lost at Keshar Prime. They lost at Threshold Gate. They've lost control of 17 conquered species. We're not negotiating from equal positions. We're negotiating because we're choosing mercy over total victory. Carthan's chief diplomat, a thin Valorian named Korath, stood angrily. You speak of mercy? You destroyed our fleets. You freed dangerous criminals. We freed slaves, Daehyun interrupted. There's a difference, though I understand why you might be confused. Your entire empire was built on not knowing that difference. Korath started to respond, but Carthan raised his hand. The old emperor stood slowly, his movements careful. Let me speak. The room fell silent again. This was unprecedented. Emperors didn't negotiate directly. They sent diplomats. They maintained distance. But Carthon looked directly at the human delegation. "I was not emperor when your world was conquered," he said. "That was my grandfather. I was not emperor during the slave camps. That was my father. But I am emperor now. And I understand what that means." Jiwan leaned forward slightly. "What does it mean?" "It means the crimes are mine to answer for. The Empire's actions, past and present, are my responsibility." Carthon's voice was steady, but weary. "For 400 years, we told ourselves that conquest was natural, that superior species should rule inferior ones. We believed our own propaganda. We built our civilization on that lie. And now?" Heijin asked. "Now I see the cost. Not just in your revenge, though that has been devastating, but in what we became. We turned ourselves into monsters and called it progress." Daehyun stood, his anger barely controlled. "You want us to feel sorry for you? You want us to forgive 4 billion dead humans because you finally realized conquest is wrong?" "No," Carthon said quietly. "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I can offer something else. Truth. Accountability. Change." He activated a holographic display. Documents appeared. Official Valorian records. Orders for conquest. Reports from slave camps. Experimental data from human test subjects. Everything. The complete truth about what the Dominion had done. "I'm releasing all of this publicly," Carthon said. "Every crime. Every atrocity. Every lie we told ourselves. The galaxy will know what we did. My people will know what we did. And we will live with that shame." The room erupted in chaos. Valorian diplomats shouted protests. Other species demanded explanations. The humans sat silently, watching Carthon. When order was restored, Heijin spoke. "Public admission is a start. But we need more. We need concrete actions." "Name your terms," Carthon said. Heijin pulled up a prepared list. All slave camps closed immediately. All conquered species given full autonomy. Reparations paid to every species that suffered under Valorian rule. War crime tribunals for any commander who ordered atrocities. Permanent monitoring of Valorian military by an independent council. Reduction of your fleet to defensive purposes only. And memorials. On every Valorian world, memorials listing every species you conquered and every individual you killed. The Valorian delegation looked horrified. One diplomat spoke up. "Those terms would destroy us. We'd lose everything. You'll lose your empire," Jiwan said. "But you'll keep your lives. That's more mercy than you showed my ancestors." Carthon studied the list carefully. Then he did something no one expected. He nodded. "I accept these terms." "Your Majesty," Korath protested. "You can't. The military will revolt. The governors will refuse. Then we'll deal with them," Carthon said firmly. "This empire was built on cruelty. If it can't exist without cruelty, then it doesn't deserve to exist." Daehyun stared at the emperor for a long moment. Then he stood and walked around the table until he was face to face with Carthon. The old emperor didn't flinch. "My great-grandfather died fighting your soldiers," Daehyun said quietly. "My grandfather spent his entire life preparing to fight you. My father helped plan the attack that defeated your fleet. Do you understand what your empire took from my family?" "No," Carthon said honestly. "I can never truly understand. But I acknowledge it. I admit it. And I will spend whatever time I have left trying to make it right." Daehyun stood there, struggling with emotions that had been passed down through 4 generations. Finally, he spoke. "I don't forgive you. I don't think I ever can. But I'll accept your surrender, and I'll watch to make sure you keep your promises." Over the next several hours, the terms were finalized. The Dominion would dismantle its slave system. Species would be freed. Reparations would begin. It wouldn't happen overnight. It would take years, maybe decades. But it would happen. As the conference concluded, Carthon approached Jiwan privately. His guards stayed back, giving them space. "Admiral Park," he said, "may I ask you a question?" "You can ask. When will your people forgive us? What will it take for humanity to let go of the past?" 14. Iwa News. "When will your people forgive us?" Jiwan was silent for a long moment. Then she met his eyes. "We will forgive when the last name on our memorial wall is forgotten. We are humans. We never forget." "Never?" Carthon asked. "That seems like a heavy burden to carry." "It is," Jiwan agreed. "But it's our burden. Memory keeps us honest. It reminds us what happens when we become complacent, when we stop watching for tyranny, when we forget that freedom requires constant vigilance." She paused. "But here's what you don't understand. We don't just remember the bad. We remember the good, too. We remember the species that helped us during the rebellion. We remember the Valorian guard who let my grandmother rest when she was too weak to work. We remember the engineer who sabotaged his own people's weapons to help us escape. Memory isn't just about hate. It's about balance, about justice, about making sure history doesn't repeat itself." Carthon nodded slowly. "Then I hope someday humanity remembers that we tried to change, that we admitted our crimes, that we paid the price." "We will," Jiwan said. "That's what memory means. We'll remember both what you were and what you became." 3 months later, Jiwan stood before the memorial wall again. Construction crews worked nearby, adding a new section. It would list the names of Valorian civilians who had helped humans during the slave camps, the guards who had shown mercy, the engineers who had sabotaged equipment, the diplomats who had argued against conquest. It was small compared to the main wall, but it mattered because truth was complicated, because even in the darkest times, there were lights in the darkness. Youngsu approached. "Admiral, we've received reports from the liberated systems. The transitions are going smoothly. The Trin are helping organize new governments. The Dominion is cooperating with inspections." "Good," Jiwan said. "And our fleet? Maintaining patrol routes. Watching. Waiting. Making sure the peace holds. That's all we can do," Jiwan said. "We can't forget. We can't become complacent. But we can choose how we use our memory. We can choose whether it makes us monsters or guardians." She turned away from the wall and looked out at the stars through the viewport. Somewhere out there, New Terra shone blue and green. A second chance for humanity. Somewhere out there, freed species were rebuilding their civilizations. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was changing. "We never forget," she said quietly. "But we also never stop hoping for better." Behind her, the names on the wall glowed softly. 4 billion humans who died. 400 who died defending their new home. And a small section honoring those who showed mercy in a time of cruelty. All of them remembered. All of them part of humanity's story. The story of a species that was broken but never destroyed. A species that learned the hardest lessons and used them to protect others. A species that carried memory like a shield and hope like a weapon. The galaxy had learned what humans were capable of when pushed to the edge. Now it would learn what humans were capable of when given a chance at peace. And humanity would never forget either lesson.